My twin convinced everyone I was the slow one my whole life, until I became the most important person at his wedding. Growing up, Johnny never let me forget I was born 7 minutes after him, with the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. Brain damage explains everything, he'd say whenever I struggled with reading. He'd make me repeat sentences in front of his friends to show how I stumbled. See, half his brain never turned on. Mom stopped defending me after parent-teacher conferences confirmed I was special needs. Dad couldn't look at me without sighing. I wondered if I was really broken or just different. When I was 16, our neighbor Mrs. Rivera moved in with her deaf daughter JD. I watched them communicate through their window, hands dancing in beautiful conversation. JD looked so isolated at the neighborhood barbecue, sitting alone while everyone talked around her. That's when I knew what I needed to do. I started learning sign language at the library after school. The librarian thought I was studying for classes, but I was watching ASL videos with subtitles. I practiced in my bedroom mirror until my arms ached. I found deaf community meetups and told Mom I was at study groups. Johnny was too busy being recruited for college track to notice. He'd leave his acceptance letters on my desk with sticky notes saying, maybe community college has a slow track. When he started dating Ashlyn, it got worse. She was pre-med at Stanford, and Johnny loved introducing me as my brother who's still figuring out basic math. They'd laugh about their future while I sat there silent. Don't worry, Ashlyn would say with fake sympathy. Not everyone needs to be exceptional. What killed me most was how Johnny would explain my silence to people. He processes things slower. Give him a minute or 5. Even teachers started talking to me like I was fragile, but I kept practicing sign language every night. I learned about deaf culture, studied facial expressions, memorized thousands of signs. The deaf community embraced me in ways my own brother never did. They didn't care that I mixed up words sometimes or that reading took me longer. 3 years passed like this. Johnny got engaged to Ashlyn right after college graduation. The wedding would be huge. All their accomplished friends, Ashlyn's surgeon parents, our entire extended family. Johnny made me a groomsman, probably just for symmetry. Just don't lose the rings, he joked at the rehearsal dinner. Actually, maybe I should give them to someone else. Everyone laughed. I forced a smile. Then Ashlyn's grandmother arrived from Florida. Judith was 92, deaf since birth, and had never heard of a wedding ceremony. Ashlyn's family had hired an interpreter, but she canceled at the last minute. Food poisoning, they said. The wedding was tomorrow. Ashlyn was panicking. Johnny shrugged it off. She can watch. She'll get the idea. Her grandmother had flown across the country for this. Ashlyn mentioned her grandmother hadn't been to a family wedding in 40 years. She stopped going because she could never follow along. The next morning, I put on my groomsman suit and made a decision. As the ceremony began, I stepped out of line and walked to where Judith sat. Johnny looked confused. Ashlyn looked mortified. I signed to Judith. Would you like me to interpret? Her eyes went wide. She nodded immediately, tears already forming. I stood beside her and began signing every word. The officiant's welcome. The stories about how Johnny and Ashlyn met. Every joke that made the crowd laugh. Judith laughed too, for the first time at a wedding. When Johnny read his vows, I signed about his promises of eternal love. Judith watched my hands like they were giving her a gift she'd waited decades to receive. During Ashlyn's vows about building a life together, Judith grabbed my wrist. She signed back, "You're giving me my granddaughter's words. Thank you." The entire congregation had gone silent, watching us. Johnny stood frozen at the altar. When the officiant pronounced them married, Judith stood and signed something beautiful about love and family. I voiced her message aloud for everyone. Marriage is two hearts speaking the same language. Today, I finally got to hear my granddaughter's heart. Ashlyn broke down crying. She left Johnny standing there and ran to hug her grandmother. Ashlyn thanked me for this gift. At the reception, Judith insisted I sit at her table. She signed story after story about Ashlyn's childhood, and I voiced them for Ashlyn's parents, who'd never been able to communicate with her directly. The whole room gathered around our table. Judith signed to me. "Ashlyn's young man, he's your brother?" I nodded. "You're nothing alike," she continued. "You see people. He only sees himself." Johnny found me later by the wedding cake. "I didn't know you could do that," he said quietly. "There's a lot you don't know about me," I replied. "Because you never asked. You just assumed." He started to speak, then stopped. For once, Johnny had no words. "She says you're the first person in years who made her feel included," Ashlyn said, approaching us. Johnny watched his new wife look at me with admiration he'd never seen directed at him. That was the last time Johnny ever called me slow.